A 60-year-old retired woman books a 20-year-old man online for a sexual experience. It was Nancy's first time to have sex other than her husband, and she was very nervous. In order to look better, she kept adjusting her dress in front of the mirror. That's when the doorbell suddenly rang. She opened the door, and the man was even younger and more handsome than in the picture. As soon as he entered, he gave Nancy a kiss with great skill. He suggested a glass of wine first, and they sat on the couch and chatted. Leo could see Nancy's nervousness and suggested to start straight away. He gently took Nancy's hands, lifted Nancy's hair from her ears, and kissed her on the neck. Then he took off her jacket and led her to the bed. But Nancy was a little scared. Her husband had been dead for years and she was already rusty. She worried that her old self would not be able to satisfy Leo's young body. She asked Leo if there was anything about himself that appealed to her. She thought he would be perfunctory, but Leo pulled Nancy to his side and answered with great affection. Leo's gentle touch made Nancy very touched. She used the excuse of changing clothes and ran to the bathroom to calm down. She looked at herself in the mirror and thought of the perfect Leo outside. Nancy began to feel inferior, so she walked out the door and told Leo that her decision was just an impulse and he could leave. She would pay him every penny. But Leo could see the woman's innermost primal desire. Now she was just trying to suppress herself based on her status. His professional ethics wouldn't allow him to give up like that. He took Nancy to the bed and talked to her, trying to open his heart slowly through conversation. After some conversation, Nancy gradually relaxed, and she finally spoke her mind. She used to cover herself up to satisfy her husband, so much so that she had never felt any real happiness in her 31 years of marriage. When she got to the emotional point, Nancy even shed tears of anguish. Now that her husband had died and she was almost 60, she didn't want to be a performer anymore. She wanted to feel real happiness. Leo didn't say much more. He replaced words with actions and fulfilled her wishes with his body. The lust she had suppressed for most of her life was finally released, and thus the two completed their first transaction. Nancy felt so satisfied afterwards that she quickly made a second appointment. The 60-year-old woman booked a man online to experience sex. She also made a list of more than 10 items she wanted to complete. This time Nancy was more relaxed than the last time. Nancy wanted Leo to complete the list within 2 hours. This sexual pleasure was treated as a time task by her. Before Leo could respond, Nancy was already anxious to get to the first item. Leo was a little confused. While Nancy went to answer the phone, he turned on the music. When Nancy came back, he took her hand and started dancing. At first, Nancy's movements were a bit restrained. Then she gradually relaxed her body and danced. But the phone call from her daughter broke the happy atmosphere. After answering the phone, Nancy couldn't help but feel a little tired. She complained to Leo about how depressing and difficult it is to be a parent. Instead of saying anything, Leo relaxed her shoulders and neck. For the first time, a look of loss appeared on his face. Nancy didn't notice this. She was still anxious about her sexual mission. She asked Leo to take off his shirt, and she slowly stroked his young, perfect body from his arms to his shoulders and then to his chest. The warmth under her hands gradually ignited a longing in Nancy's heart, but that desire was soon replaced by shame. She quickly turned around and took a sip of wine to soothe her restless heart. Instead, Leo took his hand and walked to the mirror. Looking at her aging self in the mirror, Nancy was once again plunged into low self-esteem. Leo takes off her blouse and pulls away her covering arms. He told her that everyone ages and that she should learn to accept the laws of nature. Leo's reassurance helped Nancy relax a bit. However, Nancy flinched again. Leo was not impatient. He told Nancy about his experience in the business. The oldest of his clients was 80 years old, and some paid him just to pretend to be a kid, while others just wanted him to come into the room quietly. He said he was just providing a service to them. What he enjoys most is gazing into the faces of his clients' satisfied desires. When they got to talking, the rest of the sex came naturally. By the third time they met, Nancy was able to let go of her guard and enjoy the pleasure. Nancy wanted more and more after each sexual encounter. She became more and more curious about Leo. So, she found out Leo's real name in private and told him she wanted to get closer to him. But this time, Leo got angry in a rare way. The 60-year-old woman booked a 20-year-old man online for a sex experience. In just twice, Leo had completely overwhelmed Nancy's mind and body. She wanted to take her relationship with Leo to the next level, so she secretly searched his real name. She thought Leo would be happy, but he paled, got up, dressed quickly and tried to leave. He said that Nancy's behavior had touched his bottom line. Nancy explained that she was just trying to help him ease his mother's relationship. Leo went straight out the door, but a little later he found that he had forgotten his cell phone and came back. He couldn't find the phone after a while. Leo became irritated and started throwing things around to vent his feelings. It was only after the phone call from the hotel that Leo calmed down a bit. He revealed the reason for his anger. Leo's mother broke off the relationship with him when he was 15 years old. But when Nancy found out, she kept asking why. Nancy, who has been a teacher for over 30 years, is used to judging others from a high position and subconsciously uses Leo to justify her own judgment. She believes that sex workers are pathetic. Her attitude angered Leo again. Leo left and told Nancy not to ask him out again. The third meeting between the two ended badly. Nancy went on a fourth meeting with no expectation. This time the place was in the cafe under the hotel, and Leo still went to the appointment. Coincidentally, Nancy's former student was a waiter here. Nancy became nervous. She didn't want the student to find out that he was meeting a younger man. Leo, who had arrived in a hurry, read Nancy's eyes and told the student he was only here to sell his car. After the student walked away, Nancy began to apologize to Leo. She now realized how much her snooping had bothered him. She says she may be just one of Leo's customers, but Leo is the only adventure she's ever had in her routine life. Leo was too important to her. That's why she wants to take her relationship with him further. Leo accepted Nancy's apology. He also said that he told his brother about his real job after he returned last time. As Nancy said, if the job made him proud, he had no reason not to tell his family, and his brother also expressed his understanding and respect for this. Nancy looked at Leo's relaxed smile and suddenly figured out her own problem. She called the female student over and solemnly apologized for her harsh words and actions in the past. She told the student about Leo's true identity and her own relationship with him. She also enthusiastically recommended Leo's services. The two then left the dumbfounded student to go into the room upstairs. This time, Nancy had no qualms and was all in on the sex. Free from bondage, Nancy was at the top of her game, and she no longer needed the help of an outsider to achieve pleasure. When it was over, she smiled and said goodbye to Leo for the last time. After Leo left, Nancy stood in front of the mirror again and looked at herself, still with her sagging skin and out-of-shape body. But she had accepted her imperfect but true self. Every gray hair and wrinkle in her body is written with her own story. This seemingly bold and unrestrained film is about a simple and timeless theme. We need to accept our true selves. Sexuality is not a beast, and neither over-repression nor over-openness is the best way. Only when we face our bodies and desires, accept our true selves, and try to become better, will we have true freedom.